Lyra's stomach twisted painfully as she sat on the edge of the crystalline cliff, the pale light of Valora's sun casting long shadows across the floating islands below. Her small fingers clutched the thin fabric of her tunic, which did little to keep out the chill that came with the failing energy storms. She tried to distract herself, humming a quiet tune she had learned from her mother, but the gnawing emptiness would not let her. Tears welled in her large luminous eyes, reflecting the shards of crystal that dotted the landscape like tiny stars. "Sira," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm hungry." From the other side of the clearing, Sira appeared, carrying a small bundle of leaves she had foraged earlier that day. Her older sister's steps were steady, yet her face betrayed the worry she felt. She knelt beside Lyra, brushing back the younger girl's hair and handing her the meager bundle. "I know, Lyra," Sira said softly. "I know." She hesitated, then continued, "But these aren't enough. The crops, they failed. The energy storms, they've ruined everything." Lyra's small hands shook as she took the leaves. She wanted to eat, but even that small comfort could not ease the fear in her heart. The sisters had always depended on the fertile lands of their home, but now the land seemed to have turned against them. Floating islands that once shimmered with life now lay barren, the crystalline trees stripped of their fruits. Sira looked out over the horizon, where the faint glimmer of human ships occasionally passed through the skies. Humans were strangers on Valora, tall, curious, and unpredictable, but they were also known for their resourcefulness. She had heard tales from traders that humans could create food from almost nothing, using clever machines and strange seeds. Some even said they could make fruit bloom in the middle of deserts. Sira took a deep breath. The decision she had been avoiding for days weighed on her heavily. She had to help Lyra. She had to find a way to bring food to save her sister from the slow despair of hunger. I think I know what to do," Sira whispered, more to herself than to Lyra. "It's risky, but..." She looked at her sister, whose eyes were already beginning to droop from exhaustion. "I'll find a way." Lyra looked up, hope and worry tangled in her expression. "What do you mean, Sira?" Sira hesitated, knowing that the truth would frighten her younger sister. She took Lyra's hands in hers and held them tightly. "There are humans nearby. I can go to them. I can offer myself to them in exchange for food for you." Lyra's eyes widened. You would leave me?" she whispered, voice breaking. "But I don't want you to go." Sira smiled gently, trying to mask the fear in her own heart. "I'm not leaving you, Lyra. I'm going to make sure you're safe. And I'll return. I promise." She brushed a tear from her sister's cheek. "Sometimes we have to be brave for the ones we love, and I will be brave." The next morning, Sira prepared for her journey. She packed what little she could carry, including the stories of their family, woven carefully into a small crystal pendant that humans might find fascinating. Lyra helped her, clumsily tying the bundles and wiping away tears. The sisters shared a quiet meal of the few remaining leaves, savoring each bite as if it were a feast. When Sira finally set out, she took the narrow path along the cliffside, her heart pounding with fear and hope. She had never traveled beyond the floating islands, and the thought of approaching humans filled her with both dread and determination. She reminded herself that the humans were not enemies. They were beings of curiosity and creativity, and they might be the only ones who could save Lyra. As she approached the landing site where human shuttles sometimes touched down, Sira observed the strange machines from a distance. The humans themselves were taller and more solid than Valorians, with smooth, pale skin and eyes that shone with intelligence. She felt a strange mix of awe and caution. Their language was different, their gestures unfamiliar, but their curiosity was clear. Finally, a human noticed her. They stepped forward, holding a small device that hummed with soft light. Sira straightened her posture and approached carefully. I come in peace," she said, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "I am Sira of Valora. I seek help for my sister." The human tilted their head, listening carefully. "Help? For your sister?" Sira nodded. "Our crops have failed. She is hungry. I can offer myself in exchange for food." The human considered this, their expression thoughtful rather than fearful. Then they smiled gently. "You don't need to offer yourself. We can help you, but not like that. Tell us more about your home, your culture, your people. If we understand, we can help." Sira blinked, stunned. This was not what she had expected. Humans valued understanding, knowledge, and cooperation. not sacrifice. Over the next hours, Sira shared stories of Velora, of floating islands, crystalline forests, the energy storms, and the delicate bond her people had with the land. The humans listened carefully, asking questions, their curiosity genuine. Then, with quiet excitement, they began showing her devices that could grow nutrient-rich plants quickly, even in challenging environments. Sira realized that humans were not only clever, but compassionate in their own unique way. They wanted to help not for profit, but because they understood the value of life. She thought of Lyra, waiting back home, and felt a surge of hope she hadn't known in weeks. By the time Sira prepared to return, the humans had provided her with a compact food generator and instructions for using it on Velora. It was far beyond what she had dared to hope for. She thanked them, her heart full, and began the journey back to her sister. When she reached Lyra, the younger girl ran to her, wrapping her small arms around Sira's waist. Sira handed her the small device, and as Lyra marveled at it, Sira whispered, "We're going to be okay. We're going to survive, and one day we'll thrive again." The sisters sat together on the cliff, watching the sun set over the floating islands. For the first time in weeks, they felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the failing sun. It was the warmth of hope, of ingenuity, and of love, the kind of strength that humans had shown them and that they would carry forward. Lyra looked at Sira with wide eyes. "Do you think humans are special?" Sira smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her sister's face. "Yes, Lyra, in their own way they are. But so are we, and together we can do amazing things." The night fell, soft and quiet, as the sisters rested under the crystalline sky, ready to face tomorrow with renewed courage. Sira and Lyra spent the first night in a small cave near the cliff, safe under the crystalline canopy. The soft glow of the floating crystals reflected in Lyra's wide eyes as she examined the compact food generator Sira had brought from the humans. She touched it gently, unsure whether it was magic or science, but she trusted her sister's judgment. "Will this really work?" Lyra asked, her voice small. Sira smiled, brushing her hand over her sister's hair. "Yes, the humans made it very clever. It will help us grow food even when the land is tired or the storms are strong." She paused and looked out over the barren fields. "We will need to be patient, careful, and work together. But it will work." The next morning, the sisters set out across the floating islands, carrying the compact generator and the small seeds the humans had given them. As they walked, Sira explained the instructions she had memorized. The devices needed sunlight, vibration from the ground, and a little water to start. In return, they would produce enough food for both sisters, and eventually for their neighbors. They began in the valley near their home, placing the generator on a patch of cracked earth. Sira adjusted the settings carefully, pressing the soft, glowing buttons in the order the humans had shown her. The device hummed softly, and tiny shoots of green began to push through the soil almost immediately. Lyra's eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's growing," she exclaimed. "It's really growing." Sira laughed, feeling a rush of relief and pride. "Yes, it is. And soon you won't have to be hungry again." As the days passed, the sisters worked together to spread more devices across the floating islands. They shared the humans' instructions with their neighbors, explaining how the food generators worked and how the seeds could adapt to Velora's unique soil. Slowly, the barren lands began to bloom with life again, and the people of Velora started to regain hope. Word of the sisters' success spread quickly. Neighbors came to watch the machines in action, amazed at how humans had created something that could help without harming the land. Some offered to help Sira and Lyra expand the project, carrying seeds, adjusting devices, and watering the young plants. The sisters found themselves surrounded by community, their earlier fear replaced by a sense of shared purpose. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the floating islands, Sira and Lyra sat atop a cliff, watching the vibrant green patches of newly grown crops below. Lyra leaned against her sister, a soft smile on her face. "I'm glad you went to the humans," she said quietly. "I was scared at first, but I understand now. Humans, they are clever, and they care." Sira nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Yes, Lyra, humans are special in their own way, but we are special too, and together we can do amazing things." The following weeks brought steady progress. The food generators produced enough to feed not only the sisters but also their neighbors. Lyra helped tend the plants, her small hands gentle with the young shoots. Sira continued to teach the neighbors how to care for the devices in the soil. emphasizing patience and observation. During this time, the sisters also learned more about humans through the instructions and notes the traders had left. They discovered that humans valued stories, music, and art as much as technology. Inspired, Sira suggested that they share Valora's culture with the humans in return, creating a bridge between the two worlds. One day, a small human shuttle returned to the floating islands, carrying a delegation eager to see the results of their devices. Sira and Lyra greeted them warmly, showing how the machines had transformed the land and how the community had embraced the new methods. The humans were delighted, not only at the success of their technology but also at the creativity and resilience of the Valorians. The delegation spent hours learning about Valora's floating islands, crystalline forests, and unique energy storms. They listened intently as Sira and Lyra described the challenges their people had faced and how the sisters had worked tirelessly to help their community. The humans marveled at the sisters' courage and intelligence, realizing that Valorians were as resourceful as they were. Before departing, the humans left additional food generators, seeds, and educational materials. They encouraged the sisters to continue teaching their neighbors and to share the knowledge with future generations. Sira thanked them, feeling a deep sense of connection and mutual respect. After the humans left, Sira and Lyra returned to the fields, working side by side to expand the gardens further. Lyra's confidence grew as she learned to adjust the generators and care for the plants. She began teaching younger children in the community, passing on what she had learned from her sister and the humans. Sira watched her sister with pride, remembering the fear and uncertainty she had felt before meeting the humans. She realized that courage, ingenuity, and collaboration had made all the difference. Hunger had driven her to take a risk, but it was her love for Lyra and the willingness to trust others that had created a lasting solution. As the weeks turned into months, Valora's floating islands transformed. The barren lands became lush with vegetation, and the community thrived. The energy storms, while still unpredictable, no longer caused despair, as the humans' technology and the sisters' careful planning mitigated their effects. One evening, as the sisters sat atop the cliff watching the sunset, Lyra turned to Sira with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think the humans will visit again?" Sira smiled, placing a hand on her sister's shoulder. "I'm sure they will. But even if they don't, we've learned something important. We can solve our problems together. Humans are special, yes, but we are special too. And when we combine our strengths, we can overcome anything." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth in her sister's words. The sisters sat in silence for a while, watching the colors of the sky shift and reflect in the crystalline forest below. It was a peaceful moment, a reward for their hard work and determination. In the following months, the sisters continued to innovate. They experimented with new combinations of seeds, adjusting the food generators to grow more efficiently. They encouraged other families to try new methods, fostering a culture of learning and cooperation. Children laughed and played among the green fields, while elders shared stories and songs, strengthening the bonds within the community. The sisters also began documenting their journey, writing down what they had learned from the humans and their own experiments. Sira hoped that future generations would benefit from their experiences, understanding that courage, collaboration, and curiosity could solve even the most difficult challenges. One day, as they tended the gardens together, Lyra looked at Sira and said, "I'm glad you went to the humans, but I'm glad you came back even more." Sira hugged her sister tightly. "I promised I would, Lyra, and I always keep my promises." The floating islands glowed softly in the evening light, a symbol of resilience and hope. Valora had survived the worst of the storms, and the sisters had shown that determination, love, and ingenuity could create a brighter future. With the humans' knowledge, the community's cooperation, and the sisters' courage, Valora was no longer just a land of floating islands and crystalline forests. It had become a place of thriving life, learning, and harmony. Sira and Lyra often sat together on the cliff, watching the wind play through the trees and the floating islands drift gently in the sky. They knew challenges would come again, as they always did, but they also knew they could face anything, together with hope, creativity, and the belief that humans were not the only special beings in the universe. For the first time in a long while, the sisters felt truly at peace. Their bond had grown stronger, their community had flourished, and the future seemed full of promise. They had learned that help could come from unexpected places, that courage could change the world, and that love was the most powerful force of all. And as the stars began to twinkle above Velora, Sira and Lyra knew that no matter what storms came, they would always face them side by side, with hope in their hearts and a legacy of ingenuity and care to guide them.